We are here with Wake and Bake Club, the Sativa Sisters, and I am interviewing Ray Verban, who is a participant in the IRA, which to everybody out there is the, you know, is the Irish Republican Army.
One more, I got it.
There might be there used to be a car.
It's cleared out.
All right. Welcome to the show, Dan.
Thanks for having me. I'm excellent. How are you doing this morning?
Good. Okay, so let's start out with what the IRA exactly is. I know it was established in 1919. Why?
The IRA originally, Ireland wasn't its own country. It's ruled by Britain.
Okay.
And originally, what it was called the the Irish Volunteers, and those were the ones who were more or less like the city militia. It's the call to arms, so to speak. And as it progressed, it went from the IRA the Irish Volunteers up into the IRA when there was a man from Britain that was coming in and they were stationing more troops and they didn't want them there. Well, as it progressed, they were fighting off Britain, trying to gain their own power structure and everything like that. And they wanted 6 counties that were only to be ruled under, I think, militia county rule, which is like military rule only for that county. That county decides everything. So that's pretty much what it's been ever since that. I mean, the initial war was only from 1919 until 1922, when there was a truce agreement signed with Britain, because Britain and Ireland both were losing too much. Because the way Ireland was fighting its war was, we're going to put more pressure on the people back at home, and what they were doing was, I think it was the artillery war.
Mm-hmm.
But that was their first step, because there was 5 different steps that they were taking. But that first step is cause as many deaths as you can to the British, to put pressure on them back politically and lose their numbers. Well, then the treaty was signed and everything was set in stone from there. And then what wound up happening was, it was the people in the north who were like the true Irish, the like 100% real heritage, like the motherfuckers that just get shit done. And they wanted Britain out. They wanted Ireland as an Irish. That's not British, it's Ireland. It's different. And that's where it started to go from there. And then the IRA, what it was in the beginning was super rebellious and things like that, and what it wound up moving on to was a fight for rebellion, and that's what it carried on to until about 1960 or so. And then in 1960, they needed more weapons and things like that because they understood their first fault. The first fault was back when they were fighting in 1920. They were down to about 3,000 rifles, most of which were stolen from British soldiers. So they were really losing the war. And at first, they were... when they were fighting the war, they would fight in assaults and go full on and take out police fortifications because they were British-run, British, government, and take out police and things like that. And then the violence started to escalate, and Britain started to bring a bunch more troops in and things like that. Well, as Britain was bringing these troops in, they had to switch to what was called column fighters. Mm-hmm. And the column fighters were about 20 people or so that would fight in guerrilla-style tactics. They would hide out, ambush, make their kills, take off without any casualties. And that's how they would fight. It doesn't matter if they take everybody out, it's just doing that damage, because if you fight the war slowly, you will finish the war.
Gotcha. Excellent. Okay. So you have some affiliations with IRA, and we like to let everybody know there are some things that, of course, you can't talk about. So the things you can't talk about, we're just going to kind of bypass.
Yeah.
One of the biggest questions that I just got in my head is looking at today and the terrorist groups today. Is IRA still active today? Like, do they still, there was a ceasefire in 2005. Was that kind of just a political ceasefire, leave us alone, and kind of back up into maybe underground organizations?
See, the first thing that I want to ask is, what would you consider a ceasefire? Like, if there was a ceasefire between us and the Taliban right now, what would you consider the ceasefire to be?
As long as both sides were not instigating other sides, everybody's kind of minding their own business, there's no fire being exchanged, but each country holds, or each campaign holds the right to reserve for self-defense.
So the way that I view it is that the same thing can be said like with Russia. We had what you would call a Cold War with Russia.
Right.
It's more or less a ceasefire.
I got
What
you.
a ceasefire really only says is no more blood.
Gotcha.
Stop killing each other. Stop shooting. Because body counts are where you draw attention and things like that. But both parties still act exactly the way they're going to act. The U.S. as well as Russia still fought a war. We still paid the money for the war.
Right.
We escalated ourselves up another step. We weren't sure what exactly was going to happen because there was a ceasefire, but both parties were still at war. Because even if we initiated a ceasefire with the Taliban or Al Qaeda right now, they're still going to do the thing. They're still going to stockpile weapons. They're still going to kidnap people. They're still going to do that, but there might not be a body count.
Absolutely. I got you.
So I would consider the IRA just in a cold war, like a dormant volcano. They have the ability to be like, "What's up?" or they just sit down and do their thing.
I got you. Okay. So I know back, I want to say in the 90s, I think it was, there was kind of a civil war type between the Protestants and Catholics. I know that the IRA was kind of brought up a little bit here and there through little articles I read. What was their exact affiliation with that?
I think that just still stems back to the way that my uncle explained it to me and the way that I was raised was, well, it pretty much boils down to I would rather die on my feet than live on my knees. It's the first tattoo I got. It's across my back. And the thing is with my uncle and everybody else was you don't let anybody tell you what to do. As a human being, you reserve the right to do whatever the fuck you want to do. And it's just nobody can hold you down because if you believe something and you shift to something else and you practice something else, you're cheating yourself as well as your afterlife. Is what it is. Proud to be who you want to be.
I got you. Did you guys pick it? Was the IRA affiliated more with the Protestants or Catholics, or was it just an all-around believe what you want to believe, but believe it peacefully?
I think, I'm not exactly too sure, but I believe that they were more along the Catholic lines than they were the Protestant.
I gotcha. Did you notice I don't know what time frames you were affiliated with the IRA, if you were a participant?
Within the past 10 years.
Okay. So maybe at the end of that? Or
yeah, that was more, when I was affiliated, I wasn't anything to do with any of that. When I was affiliated, I was more along the lines of building strength for the cause. I was handling weapons and explosives and making weapons and explosives. We didn't touch drugs. That was one thing we never touched because we drank. I mean, that's what we were a bunch of Irishmen who just wanted to drink. We didn't touch any drugs or anything like that. I was actually the only one who smoked pot, which it's on you. But yeah, so we didn't never touch drugs because drugs were detrimental. If drugs got into Ireland, drugs were going to do damage in Ireland. If drugs get into Britain, they're going to do damage in Britain. But if we have to handle the drugs, somebody gets greedy and it slips out into the public, and there you go. Now you have put drugs into your city, so we weren't about that.
I got you.
But with the guns, we didn't give the guns to anybody who was against our cause, more or less Britain. We didn't like Britain, fuck Britain.
Absolutely.
It's just kind of how we are. But yeah, it's just I was doing more of the criminal activities and taking care of business, if you will.
I got you.
For them and things like that.
So we know that you kind of did some prison time for the IRA because of your affiliation. How long were you in prison?
I was in prison for 6 months.
Okay.
And while I was in prison, I laugh at American prisons because Russian prisons have control. When I woke up in the morning, I was woke up 6 a.m. That's when I woke up. All I had in my room was a bed and a bar. That's all I had. And when I was given food, I was instructed to walk all the way to the back of my cell, turn my face to the back of my cell until I was instructed to go back. And after every command, I was required to say, yes, sir. Because if I didn't say yes, sir, I caught a beat. And I figured that out the first day. But anyway, so yes, very much so. And when they pulled you out of your cells to go and shower and do things like that, they would have you walk in a position where you have your hands behind your back all the way up and you were at a 90-degree bend facing the ground. And they would walk with a bull mastiff behind you. Now, a bull mastiff is about a 165 to 200 pound dog that if it runs at you full speed and hits you, it's about the stopping power of a 45 Magnum.
Oh my.
Yes. So those walked behind you and those barked all the time. If that dog saw a prisoner, it was barking at you. Constant stress, looking at the ground, caused disorientation, which wouldn't allow me, as a prisoner, to learn the floor plan of the building.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
It's very intense.
Did they use the dogs a lot, or was that more
The
of
dog
a
was
fear
out.
tactic type to just provide that stress to?
If you wanted to fight the dog, you had to. If you want to fight the dog and the guards, go for it, man. But you're not gonna win. You're just not. I mean, they're big. The dogs are big. The people are big. Like, I mean, I was considered a small guy, and I'm not that small. And I mean, and the thing was too is, you still have to maintain that, like, I'll take you. So what ended up happening was the first day I met this guy, and he talked to me, and he told me, you're gonna have to find a way to take care of yourself. And I'm like, well, what should I do? And he told me there's two things. You can get affiliated with somebody, or you can be crazy. And I was like, so what's being crazy entail? And he goes, crazy, like crazy. So I stood up, looked at the guard, and he told me to sit back down, told him to fuck himself, walked up to the biggest dude with my lunch tray and beat him with it. Until I got kicked down by about 8 guards. And spent the next 2 months in my bed not being able to move.
Oh my.
Yep.
Have you been in any jails here in America? Have you done any kind of county time?
The only jails that I've been here is just getting taken in and getting processed.
Booking, okay.
Yeah, just booking and things like that.
Even compared to just booking, compared to a Russian jail, what's the difference? Is there, I'm assuming, a great big difference compared to outside countries?
Yeah. Well, I mean, in Russia, if you're fucked up, you fucked up. Do what you're told. Okay? That's it. No fucking questions asked. In America, the way it is here, officers and inmates and everybody's just begging to be killed. I mean, it seems like America's kind of trying to cycle through its people. Because, I mean, if you get a crazy ass drunk person, I went to detox when I was underage. I was 20. And when I got arrested, it was 3 in the morning. I had a case of Guinness and 3 bottles of Jameson, 3 liters of Jameson. That's what I had, so I had no idea what happened. But I woke up in the morning, I had all my belongings with me, but I had my pot, I had my pipe, I had 1 shot of alcohol, and I had my all my clothes with me. They didn't take anything away from me, didn't write me any tickets or anything like that. And that's why I smoke weed now. But the thing is if I had all of that and I was in detox with a pipe in my pocket, if I get mad at somebody and snap the end off my pipe, I can stab you in the neck. It's not safe here. They don't have any control.
I got you.
Versus anywhere else.
I got you. So a big thing going on here today is kind of the whole gun control controversy. Who should have it? Who shouldn't? How it should be controlled. In Ireland, what are your gun laws like in Ireland?
I couldn't really tell you just due to the fact that you always carry a gun with you. It doesn't fucking matter. I mean, that's just the way I grew up, though. I mean, it's the same thing as the States, probably. Some people have concealed and carries and carry their pieces with them. Some people don't have concealed and carries and have 50 guns in their house. I mean,
coming from such a lax country with the gun laws and then coming to America where there's the same amount of violence, but for a completely different cause as compared to a decent cause in some eyes compared to just craziness. What's your view on how we handle our guns in this country?
America is fucking retarded when it comes to gun laws. So, do you know where the highest gun crime rate in the States are?
I do not.
It's New York City.
Okay.
Do you know in New York City you're not allowed to own a weapon?
I did not. That is very interesting. What is your view? Now, I have a friend whose view is carry a concealed, get a concealed weapon. You need to carry it, especially for me being a single female. And we talk about the Aurora Theater shooting, how he has his concealed, and if there was more people with conceals, that wouldn't have happened. And I'm going, well, you're a trained Army infantry sergeant. You know how to handle that stress under calm circumstances. You get a bunch of people together, there's going to be mass panic. what is your viewpoint on what we, how we cover and protect like the concealed weapons? Who should have access to ammo, and how that's all?
Well, the way I feel about it is your friend speaks the way that I used to speak about it until I talked to somebody along the line and they changed my mind on it.
Mm-hmm.
The way I see it is if you feel that you can carry a weapon, you better carry a weapon. If you feel like you can be a trained marksman, you can go through it, you can handle that pressure, you better be one of those people carrying those weapons. But in the mass panic like that, if more people had concealed and carries, let's say 10 people had it, 8 out of the 10 people aren't going to know where the shot came from.
Exactly.
5 out of those 10 people could be racist. Black guy running for the emergency exit, he's going to catch a cab. Those 2 people, 1 dead, family ruined. Murder charges,
Absolutely.
family ruined.
That's exactly how I feel about it. Just mass panic.
I mean, it only takes
situations.
one person with 1 round who is trained. So for like as myself, I'm a proud supporter of weaponry. Always. Because I had somebody who broke into my house when I was in the States. Or no, it was right before I got into the States. Somebody broke into my house, tried to steal some artillery that I had, and he came and loaded with 3 people. And I had a 12 gauge loaded under my bed. If I didn't have my 12 gauge with me, I wouldn't be here. And I don't think the girl that I was with at the time of the child we were taking care of would have either.
Wow.
I defended my home.
Absolutely.
And, since that, you don't know people. People don't know you, and you have to be careful and stuff like that. Now, what I think the gun laws here are doing is just damaging their people. I mean, if you are a person with a clean record, which I have a clean record, there's nothing on my record, you look me up, and you don't, or you have a clean record, I think you should have to have some form of something. Like, I think you need to be worth something. I mean, not.
Right.
It's a rude thing to say, but I mean, I think you need to have a job or have a place that you live or security. You need to have security.
Absolutely.
It's the same thing as getting a loan. Like, I'm gonna hand you $3,000. I'm gonna hand you a gun. I think that should be right around the same.
Absolutely.
Right. I mean,
Absolutely.
there shouldn't be people. Oh yeah, I got a clean record, but I'm I'm a hood rat or I'm a piece of trash, trailer trash. Like,
Right.
you probably shouldn't have a gun.
Absolutely.
I mean.
Absolutely.
But the thing is it's interesting because the place where there's lax gun laws, there's low gun crime.
I look at that as a view of you just never know who's carrying at that point, and you don't want to mess with anybody who's carrying. I don't want to run around and get shot. I really don't.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just not gonna mess with people who are carrying. If I go to Texas, keep my mouth shut. Don't want any problems.
Yeah.
So going back to your IRA affiliation, what was your experience during the time that you were there? Like, you were in Russian prison. What transpired to get you to a Russian prison?
Well, what wound up happening was I was contacted and asked to do something by my uncle. And keep in mind, this isn't my real uncle. It's my uncle,
Right.
So I was contacted and he was taking care of me and giving me a place to live and stuff like that. And what wound up happening was I was driving a car in Russia. Now, I get into Russia and I'm thinking everything's all right, and then I get a phone call, and my uncle says, "Hey, you got into Russia, right?" And I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "Punch it. You have 10 miles. You have 10 miles to go until you're safe." And I'm like, "What do you mean safe?" And that's when he told me I had a very large amount of plastic explosives in my vehicle. And he also told me there was a dead switch underneath hey, what's happening? And he also told me there was a dead switch underneath the car if I needed to use it. And I was like, okay. And within 5 miles.
Including myself and everybody watching, what is a dead switch?
Dead switch is, I pick it up, put it in my hand, and put the button down. If I let go of that button, the car blows up.
Excellent, excellent.
Dead man's hand. Because that way, if I'm standing there and I get shot, boom.
Right.
It's my insurance card.
Ingenious.
Yeah. So what wound up happening was I got out about 5 miles, and my heart was like in my chest. I was 15, and after I got about 5 miles up, I got pulled over, and I get out of the car, and I'm like, yeah, and I had it in my hand, but I hadn't had the button. I wasn't that dumb, And I was talking and talking and talking, and then I wound up just going in, and then I wound up going into into prison.
Interesting. Okay. What kind of things were you doing in Ireland during your IRA extravaganza that you can't, the things you can't talk about, totally cool, but what kind of, gun smuggling, running, debt collecting?
Drinking.
Awesome.
Drinking was one thing. That was the staple of what we did. Like, and the thing too is, I want to make it clear that I am not part of the IRA. I was just affiliated with the IRA. I was a respected associate, what you might call it. But anyway, first night I ever went out and drank with these guys. We sat down, whiskey. And not just, not like a shot of whiskey in America. You get a fucking cup full of whiskey. And we just slam that down, and we're sitting there and we're getting drunk, and all of a sudden I get a tap on my shoulder, and my buddy looks over and goes, "Show me what you're worth," and points at the biggest guy. And I'm like, took his drink, slammed it, and walked over with a bar stool and hit him. And turned around, the whole bar erupted into a bar fight. Kicked the shit out of each other. I broke my nose. I broke a couple of other people's noses. My hands were swollen. And within 3 or 4 hours, no cop showed up. Nothing like that. The bartender shotgun. Boom! Pretty much told us to chill the fuck out. And everybody stopped and drank. And I wound up going and talking to the biggest dude and told him, like, sorry, I had it in me. And he goes, "That's all right. I turned around and kicked your ass." And, we sat and we drank.
Very
And
nice.
that was like a nightly occurrence.
All right.
And then from there, we went and we did a lot of. I did a lot personally. I did a lot of gun running. What I did, they put me on a bike, and I'd fly down the fucking side of Ireland, or I'd fly out wherever I was, because I only was in Ireland for about a month. Everywhere else, I was across 17 different countries all over, because I was a bold little kid. I was like, I don't care, I'm fucking young, I'm invincible, let's do this shit. I'd take that bike across 4 different countries.
Hey, why not?
Fuck it. And a lot of the gun smuggling was not really my deal, because I didn't want to be that person that was actually dealing to someone.
Right.
I would run it from associate to associate, but I didn't want to handle anybody outside of the Irish, the Irish family.
Gotcha.
And there was a couple times where I did, and there was only one time where it went off right. Every other time I wound up shooting at someone, or someone wound up shooting at me.
Interesting.
And I've been shot a couple times, I've been stabbed a couple times. I'm not into it. I didn't want to do it. I had more fun just running and getting the adrenaline from,
Right.
fighting with the law. Because I don't really like to fight with other people. I don't really mind other people. But as I grew up, and as I stated earlier, it's anti-authority. Nobody rules us. Nobody rules me.
Right.
Which is excellent, sitting right here at the iBake Lounge.
That is right. Absolutely.
21, federal, got nothing to say at all.